Hi guys, it's Laura. Today I wanted to talk about something that I've briefly touched on in other videos, but I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about it. Still not going to be really in depth as much as I would like, but it'd be a very long video if I talked about all of them in depth. So today I wanted to talk about coping mechanisms. I have a ton of coping mechanisms that are like, I call it my tool belt of coping mechanisms. I just pull out whichever tool I want to use at that time. So I'm going to talk about some of the ones that have been really helpful to me while I was either in pain or feeling really sorry for myself or just feeling not so positive and happy with the idea of having a chronic illness that I cannot control. So I'm going to look down a little bit because I wrote down just things I want to touch on. I also want to read a little brief excerpt of something I'm writing. I'm trying to write like a little book, short story, something about pain and chronic illness, but I'll read that at the end of this. So the first thing I used a lot, the first coping mechanism that I'm going to talk about when I first get out of hospital stays. I use it a lot still. And it's actually one of the nurses during my second hospital stay, which was the most painful and the longest and the most traumatic. She told me to write down 5 positive things a day. And that sounds so hokey and silly, but I did it anyways, and it really, really helped because you kind of healing is a really frustrating process because it takes so long, and sometimes you can't really look at it from day to day. You kind of have to look at it from week to week or even month to month sometimes, and that gets really frustrating, especially if you're impatient like I am. So, for instance, one of my 5 positive things a day, one of the things on my list was, I remember this vividly, I made it up half a flight of stairs without stopping. Even though it was slow and it was painful, this was like a really big feat for me because there was a point where I was sitting up in my dad's ottoman chair, whatever, for like a very long time after my second hospitalization. Whenever I flared, I couldn't even lie down because it would hurt so badly. So I would sleep sitting up, and I couldn't make it up the stairs either. So I made it up half a flight of stairs one day, and I was so impressed and happy about it. Another thing that I always used to do was, I only went to the bathroom 7 times today instead of yesterday, which was 12. And that always really kind of helped too. Just to think about the positive things that may not seem like huge accomplishments, but they're something. Also, this is really hokey as well. All of these are a little hokey, and you may disagree with them, but I will argue with you until the end of time that these things really did help me. So I also paint a little bit. I'm not very good at it, but I do paint, and I decided one day, it was after my first hospitalization, I think, I wanted to paint my pain. And that sounds really weird, but literally, like, I painted this intestine, and I drew, like, all this gruesome stuff that I was feeling. So it was, like, torn in one part, and it was bleeding, and there was barbed wire wrapped around it, and it was, like, just this, and it was, like, stretched out and, like, really gross, and, but it really helped because it felt like I was kind of taking my own pain that I was feeling internally and like putting it onto the page. And even though I was still in pain, like it just like felt good to like get it off my chest, to like explain like how I felt. And you know, my mom looked at it and she's like, "That is disgusting." I'm like, "That is how I feel." And you know, so we have it in our house somewhere, not like hanging up or anything, that would be weird, but another thing that really has helped me is meditation. And I've talked briefly, I think, maybe not, about this. And it has helped to this day. It helps me when I'm in pain. It helps me when I'm doing some sort of, I'm getting some test done that I really do not want to get done. It helps me when they put needles in me. It helps me when they do IVs, when they do NG tubes, when they do all this sorts of gross, terrible stuff. And there's a couple ways you can meditate, but I usually just focus on my breathing. And if it's like a really terrible test that they're doing, then I will do like imaging in my head, and I can do a meditation video and like walk you through it, or I can post links to my Facebook and to my YouTube account if you'd like some good meditation videos that I found. So meditation, painting my pain, and 5 positive things a day so far. So the next thing is laughing at yourself, which is really hard to do sometimes, especially if you're in pain, but I have found this to be super helpful. I make jokes about my ulcerative colitis all the time to the people who know about it. I make jokes to the doctors, I make jokes to the nurses, I make jokes to the pharmacy people when I pick up my enemas, and so you have to kind of be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, especially having like Crohn's or colitis or even like IBS or something that has to do with something that is very politically incorrect to talk about. So, I have a really hilarious story about how I was diagnosed, but essentially I spewed water that was an enema all over the hallway in front of like 10 doctors and nurses, and they all just looked at me, and I just started laughing because I looked like a water fountain, and it got all over the hallway, all over myself, all over my gown. It was just terrible. But you have to laugh at yourself. You can't be devastated about those things because you're going to be devastated a lot. Another thing that really has helped me, and this is the last thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, but I have some other things that are really helpful as well. And if you need me to further explain any of these, please just post below and I'll be willing to make another video or just type an explanation back to you. But one of the things that I really struggled with for a long time, having all of this stuff happen to me, was that I felt like I had no control over my life because I really didn't. And so I felt like I couldn't control how I felt. I couldn't control if I would be able to do something or not. I couldn't control how many times I went to the bathroom, like all this kind of gross stuff. And it just felt terrible to me. And so I decided that I would control other things. So what I controlled was my grades. I literally kind of got to an unhealthy point, obsessed with getting A's and only A's, and 94s weren't good because they weren't above 95%. So I would stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would study and study and study, and I would control how much I learned, how much I studied. I would control how I looked. I would like do my makeup really nice every day, and so that really helped, being able to control something in your life, even if it's just a little thing like grades. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say one more, and this is very obvious, but distraction is super, super helpful when you feel really overwhelmed and like you can't use any of these. Distraction is for when you feel very overwhelmed. So my distraction was learning and reading in school. I read 1984 during the time that I got diagnosed, and that was like the best distraction. It's my favorite book. I've read it like 4 times now. But I'm reading other books too. Don't worry. It's not like I don't read any other book. But yeah, so distraction is very helpful too. If it's your favorite movie, if it's a book, if it's learning, if it's going and taking a walk if you're able to, if it's going on YouTube and watching videos or something like that. Just anything that's distracting and kind of gets your mind off of what is going on in your life when you feel overwhelmed. So I'm going to finish this with a little quote from my Trying to Be book. And it's very like hokey, just like I am, and very cheesy and optimistic, just like I am, but maybe you guys will like it. So, it's, I quote something first, but if you can't change your situation, change your attitude. This is a quote I've said probably a trillion times since being diagnosed. I live by it. Having a disease is terrible, but living life with a disease doesn't have to be. We live for the moments that are beautiful. We fight for the moments that are memorable. We're given strength and tenacity from moments filled with love and adventure. The way I see it, you can take the high road or the low. Here are your two options. You can let your struggle bring you down, push you around, rule your life, or you can have a tough time, pick yourself back up, smile, and make life worth the struggle. If you choose the latter, come with me on this journey to find strength and wisdom from struggle. We might have a little fun on the way too. So that's just like my intro to my book that is talking about struggle and like coping mechanisms and different stuff. But sorry this video has been so long. You probably have stopped watching by now, but I hope this was a little bit helpful. If you need further explanation on any part of this, then just post below or Facebook me. Happy Ostomy Week, by the way! Yay! Until tomorrow, I think. I don't know. Is it till tomorrow or is it till the 7th? I don't know. I'm going to go look that up. But, bye guys. I hope you're feeling great.